Welcome once again. Vice President Kashim Shettima, of course, visited a hospital in Borno State as the death toll continues to increase after the bomb blast. He says the death toll from the multiple suicide bomb attacks in northeastern Nigeria in the town of Gwoza over the weekend, which rose to 32, was a worrisome development. He made this known after visiting the state specialist hospital in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, where some of the wounded were being treated. News Central's Umaru Kirawa completes this report.
The pain of the multiple Gwoza bomb explosions still lingers as patients struggle to survive the brunt of the heinous act. The attack, which resulted in significant casualties, has left the Gwoza community in mourning. Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima is here at the State Specialist Hospital Maiduguri with other government functionaries to offer comfort and support to the victims.
As Dele Giwa said, one life lost in cold blood is as gruesome as millions lost in a pogrom. Our hearts goes out to the victims. So far, we have recorded 32 deaths. 42 were brought in from Gwoza. About 14 have been discharged. About 26 are currently receiving attention. And I want to use this forum to most sincerely register our profound gratitude to the Borno State government, to National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and the State Emergency Management Agency and ICRC for rising up to the challenges of the times and giving their best in terms of support.
During his visit, the Vice President Shettima interacted with the patients and medical staff, pledging enhanced support for those affected.
The House of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is with the victims, and he specifically instructed us to come and offer our condolences and commiserations to the victims of this incident. We are here with the Director General of NEMA, with the Minister of Agriculture, with the Minister of Transportation, and of course, the Chief Whip of the Senate is a son of the soil from Gwoza, so he was here since yesterday. And the acting governor had been working round the clock to provide succor and support to the victims.
The Vice President emphasized the government's commitment to improving security in Borno State and supporting communities devastated by terrorist activities. Families in Gwoza are still under curfew as they patiently await unfolding development to regain their means of survival. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Thank you, Umaru Kirawa, for that report. We'll still be looking at the bomb explosion. And 3 days after twin suicide attacks by female Boko Haram jihadists killed at least 3 and injured 13 worshippers in a mosque near Gwoza, Borno State. 4 women suspected to be members of the group killed over 20 people in the same area on Saturday, June 29th. Now, within 3 hours, 4 improvised explosive devices, that's IEDs, were detonated at various locations in Maraban, Gwoza, and Polka. The territories are controlled by factional Boko Haram leader Ali Ngude from his camp in the Mandara Mountains.
Now, Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima, while visiting victims of the attack at the state hospital in Maiduguri, stated that the death toll from the multiple suicide bomb attacks has risen to 32. Now, joining us is security expert Chidi Omeje. Good morning, and thanks for joining us, Mr. Omeje.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been saying, since yesterday when we started speaking about this story, that my biggest challenge or worry is the fact that, or the fear rather, that we might have returned to Nigeria 2012, 2013, 2014. We've gone 10 years backward, and of course now we're talking about suicide bombings again. So, am I wrong for having this concern? And do you think that maybe this is what it is playing out, or is this just a one-off?
What happened, a few days ago was actually very shocking. Shocking in the sense that one had thought we've gone beyond these suicide bombing antics by the terrorists, and But there are some reasons behind this, even if it is a one-off thing. It just goes to show that the terrorists are probably losing some level of steam. Look, it's only they resort to this sort of soft, targets when they lose grip of the actual, kinetic combat with the military. So they devise this sort of, attack on soft locations to drive home their point. There is a valid fear to say, are we going back to 2012, that ascendancy of Boko Haram insurgency? I don't think so. I just see this as one-off thing, and it should be an eye-opener to the military guys who are dealing with this situation. But see, we also need to sit back and take a look at the drivers of these things. What are the root? We need to do some level of root cause analysis to be able to unearth why this is persisting. Probably we'll look at the socioeconomic and social volatility of the Sahel region now that makes it possible and quite permissible to see influx of these terrorists. Of course, don't forget also that there's a strong link between the ISWAP and the global terrorist network. So they're always able to ship in their fighters through these porous borders we have. And of course, the fact that we have an unstable Sahel region is, of course, as I heard your report a while ago, you talked about Mauritania. I see what's happening over there. The political instability in the entire Sahel region, are one of those drivers that have kept this thing on. So your fears is valid, but we also want to see this as a one-off thing. And it's an eye-opener, like I said, and I'm sure the military must be taking dressing going forward.
All right. You're saying that we should hope that it's a one-off thing, and we really are hoping that it's a one-off thing. But we can't disagree with the fact that Borno has also taken a lot of insecurity hit. What should be the steps that should be taken going forward to ensure that we're able to protect the people and sort of calm their fears? Because rightfully so, a number of them have expressed their concerns about what might be coming in the nearest future.
But this is exactly the problem, the challenge of this sort of asymmetrical warfare. This is exactly the issue when we talk about terrorism, because you don't know where they're coming from. I mean, we might be living with the terrorists, but you never can tell. So it's actually, that's why it's always good not to have insurgency in your hands. I mean, terrorism at all, because once it bends in your location, it takes a very long while before you extricate yourself. So now, if you remember, if you recall the story about this incident, a couple of women who dressed like wedding guests and all manner of things, and even one with a baby, were the ones that detonated this suicide bombing, vests. So how on earth will we be able to do this? Well, I think at this stage we should be able to do more of technology-driven, security effort, because I think there are some drones that actually can do, actual body search from a distance, because it is actually very difficult for you to expect the military, for instance, to take care of every situation in that area. What I mean is it possible that we have military that will be able to whenever you have an event across the length and breadth of Northeast, the military will be there to, guard the event and then check every invited guest? This is just one of the situations. What about the marketplaces? What about the hospital? What about our public spaces? These are vulnerable areas, and it's difficult to, get our military guys the foot on ground to cover all those marked areas. So it's difficult situation, and this also caused at the time when you can say, this is the time you can say people should be able to be much more security conscious. They'll be able to look, see something and say something, as well as say, that's the little the people can do. Should be able to, be able to send information once they get it. Yeah. And, maybe we have to also re-energize the Civilian Joint Task Force. And then we'll do more of another thing I think we should do also is what they call all-of-nation approach, not all of society now, but all-of-nation approach. So that the issue of the Sahel region, the Lake region thing, we've got to get together more to be able to, reinforce that synergy and cooperation between and among these countries in this region. It's becoming it's becoming worrisome because, of course, you know that most of these fighters actually seeping through our porous borders across the Sahel.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing you're mentioning porous borders, because one would expect, and this is the reason that I brought up my concern before, one would expect that 10 years after, we had porous borders in 2012. We've had them even prior to 2012. But one would expect that, in the fight against insurgency, these are some of the things that, every successive administration must have ensured that they fix to some extent. And that's why I mentioned earlier that, my worry is that we've returned, to 2012, that 10 years after, we still cannot boast that we've been able to completely reduce the possibilities of these terror organizations to, first of all, recruit suicide bombers from society, and then also to be able to, have the resources to create these suicide vests. I mean, so there's many things that, we cannot boast that, we've been able to do to ensure that we almost never have a repeat of these things in Nigeria again. And that is my worry. So we have a new administration now. Do you think, that they would be able to tackle these things, seeing the approach that they've taken, towards security since they came into office?
Now, that brings me back to what I talked about, the issue of, the fact that we need to do more of root cause analysis of this situation. You see, you cannot get it right when you have pervasive corruption that engenders pervasive poverty, that bring about, people making it easy for people to find crime attractive. Now, those ladies you saw, do you think that if they had a good life, do you think that if they had some level of normal life living, that they will find such thing attractive? The terrorists are able to recruit their the members through these issues we're talking about. People are hungry. People are like in destitution. So it is very easy for them to I'm talking about the terrorists, to co-opt people, to conscript them, to actually make into the mission and say, look, what are you talking about? Are you actually living a life? Come and join us, and we'll give you some respite. So it is easy for terrorists to convince the people who are in dire needs. So that's why we talk about issue of good governance. So this is a very, very important, because we cannot keep talking about how come people are finding it attractive to join terrorists, to be a social bomber, when in actual sense their life out there is nothing to drive them about. So people find it easier or even better to be part of the whole crime network, because the ordinary society is not giving them this respite they needed. So we're talking about the need for us to sit back and look at those drivers of these issues. How is government able to make life and living better for the people? Northeast is known as one of the poorest regions in the world. How come that we've not been able to look at these issues? Do you think that the hordes of young men and women out there in the Northeast, wandering hopelessly, in hunger and abject poverty, do you think that they will remain like that? They can fall for just as little as 5,000 naira, and they will take they will take a course that will shock you. So we must look into issue of good governance. We must look into issue of human rights and justice. I mean, justice system, for instance. We must look into issue of allocating resources the way it should go around, so the people live normal life, so that they will not find crime attractive. So this is what I'm talking about. So I agree with you when you say that, yes, indeed, how come we're not able to rein in a situation after how many years? You talked about border, building maybe, are you talking about physical border, building physical fence? Do you have the resources? Do you know what we're talking? Do you know the area we're talking about? Do you know the expanse, nature of that particular Northeast? Do we have the resources to do that? Look, this is a very complex. So we need to, sit back and see how can we rein in. For me, the first step is good governance. That's the first step.
And I'm glad that you've brought up the conversation about good governance, highlighting the needs of the average Nigerian, the needs to feed, and the security needs. Now, whilst we can all agree that Nigeria's insecurity challenges predate the current administration. I'd like us to look at the role that the current administration has played and how it's handled it. The former Vice President of Nigeria, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, whilst criticizing the Borno attack, also talked about the government's government's lackluster position in holding the front line. So how would you say that this government has fared in how much it could have, or it has handled Nigeria's security challenges?
I've not seen any marked difference between this government and previous in terms of confronting frontally the raging security challenges across the country. We've talked about the issue of deploying the political will to deal with some of these situations. Look at the issue of the Southeast, for instance. How is government not able to see that the best approach now is political will to deal with the situation? Why are you still holding on to Nnamdi Kanu when you know that the releasing him could actually bring some level of peace in the Southeast? Now you look at the Northwest, for instance. How are you able to believe that you can get it right when people are living in horrible abject poverty, and you have, like we talked about, Sahel region being destabilized and making it easy for people, criminals to come in. So this government have not shown, for me, even though the plans are there, probably they are, but people need to seek, results in terms of how are we able to hold back and then protect our people. That has not been shown in a very concrete terms. What is needed more now, as far as I'm concerned, is the political will. This president must, stand his feet to say, look, I'm in charge, and there are things I can handle, politically, to be able to give our people some respite. You see, I'm not in the class of those who say we must not criticize government. We have to tell them the truth at some time, so that probably they will set some pressing. So I'm here saying that we must look towards political solution to some of these things, because most of them are actually a result of some misgovernance and some bad political and all manner of things. So poverty and destitution that you see across the country is actually wrought on us by ineptitude and bad governance. That cause between level of corruption. So if we're able to handle this, then we should be able to progress far. Yeah. So this present government, having known this fact, should be able to look beyond just mere kinetics. It's not just about asking our military to go and fire them, to go and shoot. The military does not have the magic wand with which they can wave the security challenges and they disappear. Those who possess the magic wand are actually those in the leadership position, because good governance is the magic wand we have. Once we have good governance, we will have solved the problem almost up to 60%. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say.
The non-kinetic aspects of it, are very important. In other societies, I believe that there are certain ingredients and resources that you need to create or to make a bomb. And if you go anywhere and purchase these things beyond a certain quantity, you will be questioned, or at least you would have eyebrows raised. And that's maybe why it's difficult for the United States, to have bombs going off every now and then, because there are certain regulations that just make it difficult for you to put those things together in the first place. But Nigeria is a different story entirely. We've complained about porous borders for decades, and you've not seen any administration say to themselves that this particular problem, we would make sure that we address it. There's none. They just, come and go, and, nobody really takes that, as a major. It is one of Nigeria's major security challenges, the porous borders that we have. Mr. Omeje, I want you to also respond to those who say that using suicide bombers is a sign that the government has been able to belittle the ability of these terrorist organizations to carry out other forms of attacks. And so they're having to re-strategize to then use suicide bombers because their manpower is down, their sources of ammunition has been reduced, and some of all of that. Can this be seen as a sign of victory in that regard, that we've defeated them to some extent, and so they're now resorting to using suicide bombers?
But I said that before in my opening remark. I said that recourse to suicide bombing and all manner of self-target stuff, it's just indicative of the fact that they are losing grip in that fight. the military guys have actually put them in this enormous pressure, so that they don't have any respite, no sanctuary anymore. So they are floating more or less, but confined in some areas where from there they plan this sort of society. It's actually, you are actually right. I agree with you that the fact that they are going back to these suicide bombing and stuff like that is just to show that it's just quite clear that the military guys are putting them under most pressure. And I encourage the military. I ask them to remain resilient, focused, so that these guys should be able to leave us alone for now. But I think that you made a point about how come I have access to some of these materials using bombing and stuff. I'm asking you a question. What aspect of our country have you gotten right? As a matter of fact, I mean, every now and then you see things that are quite unbelievable happening. Okay, look at what the customs have just shown us that they were able to track. What about the ones that they have they were unable to track, and that right there in our in the society? So this things happen on a daily basis. So you see, sometimes it's even beyond the government. Actually, it's about the people. How are people able to hold back from crime? But this is also where government comes in also, because good governance, like I say, is always the key. If you have good governance, like you have in other climes, people will find crime and criminality less attractive. So I agree with you. Back to the question, yes, the terrorists are going back to suicide bombing because they are unable to face the military squarely. They are unable to take on the military. They are unable to measure up in terms of the kinetic combat they have on ground. I agree with that.
Okay. And of course, you're still talking about terrorism now. I'm hoping that the investigation will be able to identify who exactly is responsible, because we don't know what we're currently dealing with. If it is Boko Haram, if it is ISWAP, if it is bandits, or if this is a new group entirely. How much would that also help us with this conversation? Would the Nigerian government be able to identify and honestly tell Nigerians what the situation is on ground? Who is, of course, behind this terrorist attack, and of course, what they need to do to tackle it?
But of course, that these terrorists have never hidden their faces each time, or rather their footprints each time they commit each time they carry out any operation. So we're waiting to see. Maybe in the coming days we'll see video clips, or see how they did it. Because I know, of course, in the past they've always you have one police stunt or the other to show Nigerians that they're formidable. So well, this is the job of the intelligence asset. The intelligence people should be able to unravel this situation and tell Nigerians exactly who is behind a particular atrocious incident that happened that a couple of days back. But like Boko Haram or even the ISWAP are never shy in terms of publicity. But the good thing is that there is actually a serious divide, a serious rivalry, deadly rivalry between ISWAP and Boko Haram. So they don't work hand in hand anymore, because so it's like a free fall over there. Every of these terrorist group trying to outdo each other in terms of how they can inflict pain and misery on people. So maybe in the coming days we'll get to see who did that. Like I said, they don't shy away. They tell you if they did it. So we know. But then again, I think that we have a robust intelligence network there that should be able to unravel who carried out that particular dastardly act.
Okay.
All right. We're going to just wait for more information. We hope that we can get to the root cause of this and see who actually carried out this attack. And like you said, we hope that this is a one-off and also a reflection of the fact that they are desperate because we are winning the war against insecurity. We thank you so much for your time with us this morning.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.